Hello everyone, on this Final Cut segment I'm going to go over Friday the 13th Part 3, aka Friday the 13th Part 3D. Now this is the second sequel to Friday the 13th, and of course Jason returns as a main antagonist, but this is the first Friday film to be shot in 3D. Studios wanted to bring it back to the era of the 1950s where films were presented in 3D. And they decided to test that on the horror audience in the 1980s with Friday the 13th. This is also the first Friday the 13th in which Jason wears the iconic hockey mask. Pretty much, if you've seen the first two, this film follows suit. You have a whole bunch of teenagers getting together, screwing around, and Jason just hacking and slashing every one of them until he gets to the final person. This actually takes place right after Friday the 13th Part 2, and they did approach Amy Still to reprise her role. She turned it down and they decided to go with different characters. I do like the main girl they have as the final girl in this, played by Dana Kimmel. Dana Kimmel does a fantastic job. I like the stuff she has towards the end of the film, but I'll get to that later. We also have the introduction of Richard Brooker as Jason. He's a stuntman turned actor, and Jason's actually a big, formidable force here. He's scary. And another thing this film does that Steve Miner does well, directing this installment, he directed Part 2, he also directed Halloween H2O. Steve Miner knows how to direct suspense, and you can definitely tell that. Jason is not shown fully, or in the hockey mask, until an hour into the movie, so it feels very Halloween-esque in many ways, and that's done very, very well. But you can definitely tell that this was a 3D gimmick. There are many moments, whether it be just with actions or kills that very much feel like 3D. And I recommend watching this in 3D. The video release has that red and blue 3D look to it, like Spy Kids 3D Game Over. And it's okay. It's a little bit lackluster compared to, say, Real D 3D. But if you're able to see it in a cinema, like an Alamo Drafthouse or a cinema that shows the original 3D copy, I highly recommend it. But some of the scenes may come across as a bit silly with 2D in the regular DVD release. It does have some solid kills in it. Some are a little cheesy, but others are done very, very well. I really like the brutality of this film. It feels scary in many ways, and Jason, the makeup is just so frightening in this installment that anytime he takes off that hockey mask, he just scares the hell out of you. The characters are not written as well as the first two. It definitely feels very different compared to the first two installments, and it's a bit lackluster to say the least. We have some stoner characters, the usual men and women that just screw around, the jocks. And then we have Shelley. Shelley is a very annoying character. He's actually developed quite well. It's just he comes across as a jerk. He always pretends to be in danger. He's like the boy who cried wolf. And he's always very insecure about his feelings, but he comes across as a big jerk in the movie. And you're just kind of waiting for him to be killed off. Even though he did introduce the hockey mask in the mythology, we have to thank him for that. I just don't like his character. You also have some characters of some punks that are introduced, and they're just collateral damage for Jason to kill, really. But other than that, it's pretty much the same as the first two films. I mean, this isn't going to be like the greatest horror film ever, but for a slasher film, it's actually done quite well. And I do like the kills. It feels very different than the first two, like I said earlier. The first two felt a little bit more darker in many ways. But again, Danica Kimmel really comes through at the end. And Steve Miner directed the final fight very well for being in 3D. It really works in like perspective shots. And then that part at the barn is just very, very well done. And we start to question her reality as she's going through this traumatic event. Overall, it's a film that takes a while to get going, but it slowly introduces Jason in a new way. And that third act, like any other Friday the 13th film, it delivers with the kills, the gore, and the action. And yeah, that's pretty much Friday the 13th Part 3. If I had to give this a score, I'd give it a 3 out of 5. I like the first two just a little bit better, but this has its moments, and it's not the worst slasher film ever. It's actually really well done if you look at the film on its own. And again, Jason gets his iconic look in this. This film really set forward to what will happen in the final chapter and the later sequels with the hockey mask and everything. And they got the formula down packed. It ain't broke, don't fix it. And they pretty much do that. They deliver a movie that's pretty much like the first two, but in a different way with 3D. You gotta really have some respect for Paramount for doing that. Originally, they were going to do it on a Star Trek film or some other films, but they decided to do it on Friday the 13th, and I like that. It's very ambitious for the time period we're in. And again, I always look at the 80s as like a second renaissance after the 50s. You have the people who grew up in the 50s with horror movies and science fiction, and you get to see some of the movies remade or original tales brought in the 1980s, and this is just a part of that with the horror audience, crowd, and 3D and cinema. Overall, I actually think this is a sincere approach to 3D, more than, say, the past decade with 3D for the money. They actually try to do something with this, and I have respect for that. And Steve Miner, yet again, directs another awesome installment of Friday the 13th. And I love his work. He knows how to do horror right, and I do love some of the stuff with Jason. Oh my god, the kills are just fantastic. So that's my review of Friday the 13th Part 3. If you haven't seen it, totally check it out. Today's Saturday the 13th, but go ahead and check out the Jasons if you haven't. And if you have seen Friday the 13th Part 3, let me know your thoughts on the film. Were you around when it was out in theaters? Did you see it in 3D? What was it like? Just let me know down in the comments below. Here's some more videos. You can enjoy my channel, and you can also see my reactions on the Stardust app at Fred Film Fanatic. Like, comment, and subscribe. Till next time.